You're listening to This is Yoga Therapy. I'm your host, Michelle Lawrence, and I've had the opportunity to interview many of those who are making a difference at the intersections of yoga and health. And I'm here to share with you their stories and conversations. Thanks for listening. In today's episode, I interviewed Sheridan Ruth. Sheridan is a yoga and trauma therapist specializing in supporting entrepreneurs to increase profit and decrease anxiety. And while there are a lot of trauma-informed and body-based practitioner coaches in the industry, none of them do it by merging body-based tools and the nervous system and business strategy, except for Sheridan. At least that's what we know of right now. And during the podcast, we'll hear more from her on how she developed her approach and how she's helping entrepreneurs combine the nervous system with business strategy to increase profit and decrease anxiety, even when traditional methods haven't worked. So I am just delighted to meet you and have you on the podcast today, Sheridan. I'm really curious about the work you do and what you'll get to share with our listeners.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me on. I'm excited to get into it.
Great. Well, maybe you can just start by sharing your background and story and what brought you to the work that you do today.
So what brought me to online entrepreneurship, which kind of propelled everything, was I was working as a yoga teacher and a yoga therapist. I had done that for a couple of years and it was pretty basic, like I had my studio classes and I had my private clients, and it was something that I just kind of built up slowly. But then COVID happened and I decided, I'd always wanted to go online, but I decided, okay, cool, this is going to be the moment that I go online. And I came in with that boom of individuals trying to do yoga online and all of my clients, I noticed they ended up wanting more coaching or mentoring or guidance like support more than they wanted to actually do yoga. And so very naturally I transitioned into this coach and said, okay, cool, we're gonna do this. And that was really fun until it got really, really hard. And I remember there was this very specific moment. I think I just had a really, really difficult week and I had all of these ambitions regarding how much I was going to be able to coach and mentor and teach. And it just had gone from really aspirational and really, really good and working and so great to not working at all. And everything felt momentously difficult. At the time, I had very recently been diagnosed with complex PTSD due to some really difficult things that had happened, and I lost my hair when I was a kid and I'd end up in a really abusive relationship and he passed away via suicide and I was a shell. And so I'm this shell of a person, but I've kind of got to build this business because this is a skill that I have and these are the things that I have to do. And, it was a combination of I had to, given the limitations at the time, and also you have those things in your body and you're just like, I have to do this. So I'm in the shower and I'm just collapsed completely and I don't have any eyebrows. And so I'm kind of like watching my eyebrow tattoos like run down the toilet, the drain. And I felt so lost and so confused. And I basically said, you know what? I'm going to quit. Because every time I sat down to write something, I felt totally paralyzed by a fear of rejection. So I couldn't write anything. And then when I went to share about my work, my voice would kind of shake and my shoulders would kind of go inwards and I would worry about being too much. And if I did manage to speak to somebody who wanted to be on a call with me, my whole mind would it would get foggy and I wasn't able to connect with people anymore. So I decided to quit. I'm in the shower. I decided to quit. That does not bring me any relief. So I still got to figure out how to get out of the shower, get to my laptop and apply for jobs. Logically in my mind, I'm like, cool. Well, I've been in difficult moments emotionally before. I'd recently done an integrative somatic trauma therapy training and obviously I have a larger background as a yoga therapist, so I was like, okay, cool, let's use one of those thousands of tools that we have to get me out of here, right, to go and do the thing that I need to do. And I did it. And I step over the shower and I'm moving to my laptop and I'm feeling good about myself. And I'm like, now everything seems possible. And then I realized, wait a second, if I can do hard things using those tools, why can't I do business using those tools? And things kind of started from there. I started getting more minutely attuned with what it is that my body was kind of nudging me towards. And I noticed, I kind of did this experiment on myself. I noticed how I could have these little micro shifts in breathing, for example, that would allow me to feel really connected to people when signing them on as clients. Or I noticed how having minute awareness of the sensations in my body would give me insight onto, quote unquote, like the next best action to take that would end up being profitable. Or I would notice that all of these like very slight changes in awareness of energy would make me more energetic and more creative and give me the ability to just flow through things. So I did this experiment on myself. I built an amazing business. I got to, how everyone gets really excited about like being fully booked and having like 20K months and all of that. Like I did the thing, and everyone kept coming to me and being like, how did you do that? Can you teach me? So I took a few people on. I started teaching. I realized I love teaching it. I'm really good at teaching it. And I slowly started releasing my hair loss clients and my relationship clients and focusing more intently on entrepreneurs. And now I've been doing that for a couple of years, and they're doing great and I'm doing great. And here we are.
Mm-hmm. I'd love to hear more about your work. Like, what even do you call it? And then who do you attract? Like, who is your demographic, your target audience? And like, what does that work look like that you do together?
Yeah. So through all the trial and error, what I've ended up creating is a method called Body-Based Business. There are 3 milestones or 3 pillars, and it applies mostly to generally kind of high achieving, pretty quick-minded, perhaps perfectionists, perhaps anxious entrepreneurs who might tend towards overworking or procrastination a lot, so kind of oscillating between the two. I work with 2 kind of levels of individuals. We can apply this methodology, which I can share about in a second, to people who are really just trying to kind of crack the code of sustainable income, like consistent 5K months, just trying to crack that code. We can also apply it to people who are really looking to get more in contact with creativity and intuition and innovation and the wisdom of their body, who have more established companies, more established visions, and are just kind of looking to move towards the next venture. The way that we do it is through body-based business, which it has a capacity of nervous system regulation, deep trauma healing, and then of course the outer work, the implementation, and the strategy around business strategy and sales and marketing.
I can see how those all go together. I mean,
can you actually?
Well, on some level, as a yoga therapist, right, doing your own work, doing your own yoga work is sort of a fundamental piece, right? And then being an entrepreneur is also a piece, and it's not necessarily intentional for a lot of people. I absolutely agree with that. And I think it naturally points toward that, shall we say. The natural, like with that as your background and that is the work in the world that you're doing, it naturally points you to do your own work towards your dharma, right?
Well, yeah. And there's just so many ways to, I think, look at it. And I think dharma is something that I've considered a lot of, It's kind of one of those funny things where I studied community development. I worked in the nonprofit sector, and then I worked in finance. And it's like, how do all of these things come together? And I think every single person who ends up teaching yoga or doing yoga therapy is asking those same questions. And the truth of the matter is, when we enter into the entrepreneurial space, which we do, I certainly did almost accidentally. I was an entrepreneur prior. I thought that being a yoga teacher would not be being an entrepreneur, which doesn't make any sense because it is. But I think have you noticed that? We kind of don't really understand.
Well, I do notice that for sure. And it doesn't take too long, however, for yoga teachers to have that reckoning.
Yeah. What do you normally notice happens when they have that reckoning?
I think what happens is that they go to burnout, because then they're just running around so much trying to do the hustle. And, once the reckoning is that like I need to hustle in order to make a living going from studio to studio teaching yoga classes, the road after that usually looks like burnout.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that's perhaps in hindsight a little bit of what I was experiencing and why this is so effective for people who are experiencing burnout, because we have this somatic intelligence inside of us that is literally guiding us to fulfill our dharma, and we just need to find our way to access it in every moment and then structure our lives and our businesses so that we can access more of it.
That sounds so beautiful. So when you reached out to me about being on the podcast, you mentioned on this podcast, because you have your own, you mentioned that you notice I don't have any episodes on increasing the nervous system's capacity for love, abundance, pleasure, and joy after trauma and PTSD or chronic PTSD, complex PTSD. So let's talk about that and how you help clients do that, because this, I think, is the same conversation, just an extension of what we started to scratch the surface on there.
100%. It's the same. And I think it's a good follow up. You have a great episode. I think her name was Caitlin on yoga. And yeah, Caitlin, yoga and emotion focused therapy for complex trauma, right? And that's really what got me more curious and had me kind of go back and look at yours. And I see it as there's almost kind of two ways that we can, quote unquote, heal when we have complex trauma or we have a level of trauma. And there's the getting yourself to well place. Like I'm feeling pretty emotionally stable. I'm feeling pretty good. But then a lot of us individuals, I don't know if you've noticed, it seems like people kind of have a threshold for how much happiness they can have, or how much joy they can have, or how much abundance they can have, or how much pleasure, or how much connection with relationships. Is that something that you've noticed before when you're observing people?
Sure. And certainly myself too.
Okay. Yeah. What does it look like for you?
I think at different times it can look at like different things, but I think when there's too much, there might be guilt around it, for example.
Yeah, guilt is a really good one. Do you ever notice yourself when life is going really, really well, all of a sudden something else kind of begins to fall apart, or you start complaining a lot? I complain. My sign is like I will start complaining, or I will start almost, it's like you kind of get distracted and you almost create drama with a friend that you don't really need to create drama with, or your car breaks down, or you stub your toe a lot. I think it's equivalent to being on the yoga mat. Everything's going really, really well. But now all of a sudden the teacher has this whiny voice that you've never noticed. And now you're fixated on it. Have you noticed that?
Maybe. Yeah.
Yeah. So our body has an energetic blueprint. Our nervous system is always orienting towards the thing that it believes is going to be the safest, which equals the thing that is the most familiar, and we haven't died from it. So when we are in the womb, our nervous system is using information from our mother and from the environment that she's happening to kind of get a taste and be like, all right, cool. Like, what's the general vibe outside? What are the emotions that are relatively prevalent? What are the problems that I think I'm going to have to solve in order to stay alive? And then it creates this blueprint of this is basically the general emotions that I can expect to have in my life, and they're relatively safe, and I know how to overcome them. My brain knows how to deal with a problem with my friends. My brain knows how to schedule lots of things and keep busy. It knows how to do those things. It knows how to get through scarcity. It knows how to make meals last longer or something. It's kind of got these problems that it knows how to figure out. And so it has this specific blueprint. When we experience trauma, or when we are more sensitive just from the get-go, and sometimes they can go hand in hand, the process of neuroception, which is what we're using to kind of read the rest of the world consistently. We're looking to read it all the time. We're just always asking, like, am I safe? Am I loved? Your body is doing that 1,000 times a minute. It picks up on these things. And when we experience trauma or PTSD or something like that, it becomes more sensitive. And so now what used to be perhaps a yellow alert now becomes a red alert because we've imprinted into our body. The bodies have a lived experience of, oh, actually the world is pretty unsafe and people can hurt me and they can hurt me a lot. Wow, okay, they can hurt me a lot. So it creates this understanding that there is some level of pain out there. And a lot of the time, a lot of people develop the belief of kind of, there's pain out there. Whether this is conscious or unconscious, there's pain out there. And at some point, we're going to experience it. It's going to be really difficult to get through the next 20 years of my life without awful heartbreak, because in the last 20 years of my life, I've had a couple. And that's pretty logical. And I think that there's some essence of truth to it. However, it becomes harmful or it becomes not helpful when we sit with that and we assume that that's pretty much as happy as we're going to get, which is what your body does. But we are not here in this practice looking to just be relatively okay and in as good a mood as we were when we were 18 years old. We're here looking for more peace. We're looking for more benevolence. We're looking for more equanimity. We're looking for more of that Shakti essence of life, the aliveness of love and of connection, which means we actually have to teach the body that that is safe, because it doesn't differentiate between, oh my God, this is a lot of sensation of fear, I'm going to shut down, versus, oh my God, this is a lot of sensation of anxiety, versus, oh my God, this is a lot of sensation of pleasure, of excitement, of love. It just learns to shut down to that sensation. So when we can teach the body that it's okay to feel more of that sensation of love, of abundance, of pleasure, of joy, and that even though feeling that might be highly sensational and it might want to check out by criticizing you or criticizing the person in front of you or picking fights with your neighbor or planning the next 6 months out for your content calendar or moving into the future and planning your book or, I don't know, thinking about how you need to pick somebody up or suddenly your car needs to be completely fixed, it kind of like shuts down. When we can increase our capacity to remain present in the face of those good or like these more beneficial feelings, then we actually get to experience more and more and more of them, because the body begins to associate them with them being safe and beneficial, meaning it gives you the thoughts, feelings, sensations, and impulses to go and pursue more of that, which I think is what we want when we're looking to heal something. Or the whole point of being in this realm is because we want to feel better. We don't want to feel just okay.
Yeah, super interesting. I really like what you're saying, and it makes a lot of sense to me. I'd love to know some practicality around like how you work with that. And it doesn't necessarily have to be that specific example, but I'd love to do just a little bit of practice with you right here on the podcast. In your own podcast, The Embodied Entrepreneur, you offered an episode entitled 10 Ways I Regulate My Nervous System for Our Financial Freedom. And maybe you can just do a little brief, a tip or a highlight right here on this podcast. Would you be up for that?
Yeah, I'm going to orient us to one that I use when I'm increasing my capacity so that we can bring them both through. Okay, let me think for a second. So when we're increasing our capacity for more joy, more goodness, the first step is that we need to know what our tendency is. So we need to, like you said, guilt. So this would be something that you would practice when you're experiencing guilt. I complain about things. So if I notice myself complaining, I would do that. I also get really critical of myself. Do you ever get really critical of yourself?
Yeah, but I can relate to the complaining for sure as well.
Yeah, cool. So this is a practice that we would do when we're feeling one of these things, meaning that relatively good things happening in our life, but somehow we've found the suffering inside of it. And it's something from trauma healing toolbox that we have. It's a tool that we use in somatic trauma healing therapy. And it's called resourcing. So a resource is anything that helps you feel confident, empowered, regulated, supported, and safe. It can be an external object, such as a teddy bear or a cat. It can be an internal object, such as a sensation in your body. I'm going to orient us towards a sensation in our body because I believe that that is a really important tool that entrepreneurs need. So let's say you are experiencing guilt You're complaining. You're noticing things that are apparently maybe wrong about you. If you were to resource, you would pick the thing that is most pleasurable for you to feel in the moment right now. So if you take a few deep breaths, you just bring your awareness inside, inwards to your body. When I say inwards, it might be actually in, so you kind of check in with your belly, or it might just be kind of like external. So I can feel I have a heated blanket on my legs because it's pretty cold here and it feels really nice. So you're just going to orient yourself to something that feels really good inside. And if there isn't really anything and you're feeling pretty overwhelmed, perhaps guilt can be a pretty good, difficult emotion. It's a big one. I want to see if you can find something inside. That might be a mantra, or it might be a little reminder, a thought you can hold on to. Something that can be really helpful is even just a sentence of like, even though I feel guilty right now, I haven't done anything wrong and everything's going to be okay. Or the sentence that I sometimes return to is, I'm freaking out because everything is working out and that's okay. So you're just going to pick your thing and you're going to laser focus your awareness on it. So maybe that's repeating it. Maybe it's repeating the sentence, or maybe if you're focusing on a sensation, see if you can find the center of that sensation. Same with your breath. See if you can just notice the edges of it or the color of it. And whatever you have a hold on, for the next 17 seconds, we're going to increase how we feel that about 10%. Increase it 10%. You're going to feel it for 17 seconds. I'm counting. A little bit longer, a little bit more. Great. And now you're going to take your awareness slowly to your external surroundings again. So that might mean that you look around you. I'm going to invite you to look in the four corners of your room. Even if you're outside, look in the imaginary four corners. And as you do so, I want you to lift your head up. So there's a crease at the back of your neck. You're lifting it up. You're looking around. You look behind you. Really check it all out. See if you can notice something in your room that you didn't notice before and that maybe you forgot was there. I forgot that there was a container over there that I need to address. Cool. Looking around. And then coming back and just notice how you feel. So what we just did was resourcing, which is finding comfort, something that brings us a sense of ease. And we felt that for about 17 seconds. The intention is to feel it until you get a change in your state. 17 seconds for many people in many times of their life is about that time period that is needed, the minimum. So it's kind of doable. And then we lifted our head up and we did orienting. And the reason I invited you to lift your head up and really look around is because that action is a very primal action of looking around, lifting your chin, and you're teaching the body through muscle memory that it's had for many, 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 many decades. Oh yeah, we're safe. Everything's fine. How do you feel?
Yeah, I feel good. I've done that sort of work before and I absolutely love it. And I just think it's so cool to see like all these different modalities coming together for different reasons, right? And so resourcing, we call it the inner resource meditation. Yoga, the iRest protocol uses it. The somatic field uses it, like taking in, using your eyes and turning your head. Like it does different things with the neck as well. And yoga understands that. I mean, so yeah, it feels great. I never knew anything about 17 seconds. So that was a really useful learning. But I loved the practice. I think it's fabulous. And like I said, it excites me to see modalities mashing together in this way.
It's cool, isn't it? Yeah, because they're ancient and we can modify them and we can change them. And that's just one really beautiful entry level one. But it's beautiful to see how all of this wisdom can be applied in different ways for different people.
Yes. And it's really great to know that there's science, like current science around the different aspects of this stuff now too. I don't know, what body of science 17 seconds comes out of, but I'm sure it comes from something that's been researched, right? And
I'm not sure. That's something that I've gotten from numerous different mentors, and I just tested it on my clients and myself.
Yeah. it seemed to work for me, and it seemed a lot longer than 17 seconds.
I was counting, maybe I was counting wrong. But yeah, it's interesting as well. Even that sense of how we can perceive time and how 17 seconds, if we can go back and look at it, maybe it was a little bit longer. But isn't it crazy how it's such a short period of time, yet it can feel so long when we're trying to feel good?
Yeah. So take me through this a little bit more. So here I am, an entrepreneur. I am riding this wave of success, and then all of a sudden it's too much success, and I throw some kind of wrench in it. I start complaining. I feel guilty, and then the energetics take hold, and now like my business is doing like a nosedive. So, doing an exercise like this, it sounds like, is to kind of build your capacity for like being okay with success, right?
Yeah. And this one, it would fall under, I believe, we talked about the pillars of body-based business. So there's regulation, there's like the deeper healing, and then there's the implementation of the strategy. This would fall under regulation because it's in the moment. It's going to be really good. It's probably not going to change the larger underlying patterns that have led you to kind of feel like everything's falling apart. Yeah.
Got it. Well, that's really great to put it in that context. Awesome. So give us a little more, if you would. I also noticed that you offer 2 skills smart entrepreneurs must master for financial freedom without burnout.
Yeah.
What might they be?
Let's take it into the other 2 pillars. Okay. So the first skill that I teach is that you got to be really honest about what your body wants. You got to tap into that somatic intelligence, and you got to be really, really honest about what your body desires, because that is hard sometimes. We're really good at feeling things, but we have a lot of conditioning around the things that we should pursue. The path that our teachers or our mentors told us that we should take, or the expectations from our parents, like the things that we think that we should be doing because that is the correct path. The very first thing that I like to teach people, and I have a different tool for this, is you've got to be really good at understanding what your deepest level of desire is, and the minute differentiation between kind of a desire that comes from the divine and an impulse and an urgency in your body to move forward to something which is oftentimes moving away from pain. They're different.
And trauma can complicate that.
Very much so. Yeah. Because we develop such a strong impulse to move away from feeling that thing. Some entrepreneurs that I work with, they're not meant to be entrepreneurs. And we find that together when we work together, because we find that their entire business was them trying to build something out of a trauma response to something their dad said once, or because they felt a level of scarcity around their finances and they were like, oh, well, entrepreneurship is the way out. Well, yes, sometimes for some people, for others, not so much. So we really need to understand, and there can be a lot of deeper somatic tools and practices and working through understanding that desire. We need to understand the different parts of you that come forward around that desire. And we've got to make it so that your body feels really, really safe to pursue your desires, that you're not a bad person, that you won't feel guilty, that it's born within you and you need to pursue it unapologetically. I would say that one. Do you have questions or thoughts about pursuing your desire?
Maybe get a little more specific. You threw me a little bit of a curveball there. So as an entrepreneur myself, it feels like it's in my DNA. Like I have no doubt that I'm supposed to be an entrepreneur, but I don't think that's the question you're asking me. So what is it you're asking me?
Yeah. Okay. To be more specific, it's like, okay, cool. You might want to build something. You have that you have that essence inside of you. Not everybody does, but even if we go with the idea of like, you're like, okay, I know that this is my past. I know that I need to be an entrepreneur. I know that this is the only way. Sometimes we really want to do things a certain way. In our bones, we really want to do it. But we get bought into this idea that there should be one way to do it. And it's like, okay, I'm supposed to teach yoga in this specific way, doing these specific classes. I don't really want to do them. That's why I'm so exhausted at the end of the week, but I don't really know what else. Or I am looking for somebody else to teach me how to build the thing. I'm looking for the proven strategy. I'm looking for the business plan. I'm looking for the KPIs. I'm looking for somebody to come and give me a blueprint and tell me these are the exact steps to success. And I want to receive that. But then the truth is those steps to success were made for the desires and the actions that the other person wanted to do, not what your body wanted to do. And so we have to be honest with ourselves of, okay, what does my body actually want to do? There's what my body wants to do inside of the business, and then there's what the business needs. And if I force myself to do what the business needs at the expense of the genuine bones in the soma inside of me wants to do, it's going to be energetically depleting. Every single thing that you do inside of your business should give you energy. With nuance, some things are going to be difficult. Some things are going to make you tired. I'm not saying don't work hard, but there's a difference between I'm going outside of myself and working really hard versus this is something that I'm learning. This is something that I'm moving towards, and I really do want to do it. And perhaps in the future, I actually won't be doing this specific thing. I don't know, content creation comes up for me. Planning yoga classes comes up to me. Maybe you don't really want to do yoga classes, but you want to do retreats. Unapologetically understand that that's your desire and pursue it and do it from the beginning. I see a lot of people kind of have a big vision and they think, well, I'm going to wait to get to the big vision. When that's the case, you're not being honest with yourself and your body's not going to feel inclined to give you energy to do something that it doesn't actually want to do. So it's going to be really difficult. Or I notice people saying, oh, I really, really want to have sustainable income from this thing. But then they keep pursuing certifications, more certifications and more certifications and more certifications. Well, do you want sustainable income or do you want certifications? Because you can have both of them at the same time, but it's going to be more difficult. Are you really willing to do both and learn two skills at the same time? They're two different skills. So be honest about what it is that you want. Do you want certifications? Do you want sustainable income? Do you want a business structured in a specific way? And pursue that with such audacity that everybody else's opinions or thoughts or belief systems can't penetrate you and what your body knows is the path to success.
Gotcha. Yeah. I understand what you're saying now. Thank you. It's definitely, I mean, having been an entrepreneur for almost 20 years now, sometimes the body just shuts down too. And for me, it's always around seeking out support and people who can help me with the aspects of the business that are not sustaining me and my health and my body and my prana. So I've had various different times in my career and will continue to have that to reckon with, like, this is what I need to be doing myself, and this is where I want to take the business, or this is the kind of support I need right now for this, because for example, like, I don't even have an Instagram, right? And so being the person in charge of Instagram is not a good fit for me, but there's plenty of other people who can do that, right? And so just knowing how to find the right supports for the aspects of my entrepreneurship and my business that are not serving for me, whether it's me energetically or my body, as you say.
What do you mean by it shuts down around getting support?
No, what I mean is if I'm working in a way that's not supportive for me, my body shuts it, like health-wise, right? Like it's just not sustainable. Exhaustion comes in. That's what I mean by shutdown. Yeah,
100%. It won't. And it's this feedback mechanism of like, no, that's actually not your path. But maybe you have a vision. Sometimes, we don't need Instagram to have a successful business. It's absurd. If any, like for those people who subscribe to that, it's just not true. And I think that you're an amazing example of I can be in my element and I can do it in the way that is most true for me. But if you also were to have a desire to have a platform of education on Instagram, well, then we would need to get somebody else to do it.
Exactly. And we, Inner Peace has an Instagram, and there's many facets to what we do as a business and as a school. And identifying the right supports for those different aspects is really critical to my well-being and to my enjoyment of being an entrepreneur.
Yeah, that's an example of you going after your desire.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, I'd love to know if there's anything else you'd like to share with our listeners about your work, how to engage with you. What do you offer? I'm sure folks are curious, and we'll include links in the show notes too so that people know how to reach out to you.
Yeah. Can I share the second skill?
Oh, yes, please.
It's an important one. And I notice, especially us kind of coming from this more spiritual background, it's one that we tend to forget about or gloss over or have shiny object syndrome around. And it is, we need to learn to sell our things. We need to learn to receive financial exchange for our things and learn to sell in a way that makes it feel like we are just talking with people that we love and getting excited about sharing something. We need to learn to receive income and we need to learn to sell that. So that is a large part of what we do and how people work with me. Yeah. So I don't know. Do you want to talk about the selling, or I think it's time that we kind of wrap up?
We can wrap up, but I just want to comment back on, I agree. Yeah, we do need to learn how to sell. And so, for example, as yoga therapists, I think about all the other services that are out there with the word therapy next to it. Physical therapy, massage therapy, occupational therapy, psychotherapy, art therapy, just to name a few, right? And for some reason, it seems like yoga therapy and yoga therapists, myself in that field, myself one of you, has a harder time selling than all those others. And I'd love to see that change. And so I appreciate you mentioning how critical this is for success.
Yeah, I would also really like to see that change, because I think at the end of the day, we want more money in the hands of people who hold values similar to ours. At least I do. I think that's going to do really good in the world. And something that I teach, so this kind of answers your question of what does it look like to engage with me. I have numerous different programs. I have one that we're going to do it's going to come up later this year. So I think that we'll be opening the doors in August, and it's called Financially Fierce. And it's a group program to increase your capacity to hold money, to receive money, to circulate money. And a part of that is learning how to have conversations around sales with neutrality and say, okay, this is my prices. This is how I'd love to work with you, and this is how we can do so. Another program that I have is called Shameless Sales, and we actually look at the nervous system dance of the sales conversation and how can I remain deeply embodied, and how is it that my body wants to do sales? What does that look like? For some people, it's really bold, and that's very true for them. For others, there's a little bit more of a reservedness, and that's really true for them, and that's really helpful.
I appreciate you saying both of those things, by the way, the bold and the reserved, and what's true. Because not everybody has to be bold, right? If that's not true for them. And, I find that these conversations around sales and asking for money, and yes, it's really important. And everybody's got to find their right energy around that.
Yeah. And it's really important that they find the right energy, because I think a lot of people are teaching people to be bold. But if you're doing that and it's not coming from a deep place of congruence of I desire to be bold because that's who I am, then the other person's nervous system is going to perceive that lack of integrity. They're going to feel unsafe, and they're not going to do it. They're not going to want to work with you.
Totally.
It's just ineffective.
Yeah. Great.
That's something I teach.
Good.
Yeah, we have different group programs to do that. But my favorite way to work with people is inside of Body-Based Business, which is a 6-month one-on-one program. And it's very bespoke. It's really beautiful. We come together, we master their sales strategy, and then we meet consistently over the course of 6 months. And we come in really as a partner to help you tweak your lifestyle, tweak your business strategy, tweak your sales and marketing plan, and become more embodied in the pursuit of your next business goal. And that's how we do it.
That sounds great. Well, I loved learning a bit about you. Finally, I think it would be great if you could just share with our listeners a little bit about your own personal practices that you do each day to help you manage your energy, whether that's regulate in, up or down, and support you in the work that you do in the world.
Yeah, these practices change so much, and I like to let them change. Right now, at the moment, my biggest practice is spending a lot of time in the sun, going for walks. I practice a lot of somatic inquiry, so kind of going inwards in my body and asking myself questions throughout the day of how does this make me feel? I think I'm oscillating at the moment between two practices, which is remaining very minutely mindful about the different sensations in my body. I use IFS parts work, for example, somatic parts work, to understand, where are all of my desires coming from? What are the decisions that I want to make regarding business, relationships, my finances, etc. But at the moment, I'm also practicing more of a posture of service and really looking outwards. And I think I come from a place where I've done a lot of inwards looking of how do I feel about things, etc. And so my practice at the moment is kind of sitting down and contemplating a little bit more of how can I remain embodied and serve? How does my body really desire to serve other people today? And of course, the yoga and the breathing and the Nadi Shodhana and the neti pot and all of those beautiful things.
Mm-hmm. That's beautiful. Thank you so much, Sheridan. It was a real joy, and I look forward to conversing again at some point in the future and sharing this out with our listeners.
That was such a pleasure. Thank you.
If you'd like to learn more about who we are and what we do, visit us at innerpeaceyogatherapy.com.